Today on our show, man, I become an asshole with the Ashen Hollow. Fair warning, we tried so hard to make this accessible for everyone, but we definitely failed. We fell down some rabbit holes like crazy as far as lore and everything. So if you are a fan of the Dark Souls series, or you've got some knowledge of Bloodborne and Demon Souls in there as well, this episode is definitely for you, okay? Gamer-fied episode. If not, about half of this episode is for you. We tried to make it accessible the whole time. We didn't really accomplish that, but it's still a damn fun episode. So check it out, man. Being an asshole with the Ashen Hollow. That's next on Nerdynomicon. Welcome to the Nerdynomicon. Brooke is not with me tonight, so it's just going to be me, but don't worry, I did bring along a guest. A lot of listeners from our old show, Lords of the Polygon Table, have been asking me, dude, why are you not doing any video games anymore? Why aren't you talking about video games? Well, the reason is there's been so much going on, so many movies, so many TV series. We got to give a lot of love to Ryan Murphy. I mean, this season of American Horror Story is absolutely fantastic. But your wish is our command, because we're talking video games tonight. And for those of you out there that listen to any of our shows, you know how much I love video games. Specifically Dark Souls. That's one of my top 3 games of all time. Up there with, Silent Hill 2 and Metal Gear Solid 3. But Dark Souls, I can't pick just one. I'm in the camp of people, I even love Dark Souls number 2. But this year gave us something great. It gave us Dark Souls 3, which is supposed to be, I hope it's not, because I love this series so much, but it's supposed to be the conclusion of this series. And the way that they craft this story is amazing. Starting with Dark Souls 1 and going forward, they tell you the story in a non-linear way. All right, they give you a plot and they give you plot points, but they leave the rest of the story up to you to kind of craft and fashion to your own vices, to your own devices. And it has created an entire culture of what I like to call lore crafters on YouTube specifically. And I fell into them. I fell into Dark Souls at a very rough time in my life, and I just became immediately addicted to it. And I found these lore crafters. And like most people, I started out with Epic Name Bro. I moved on from there to Dave Klein, Silvermon, Vadavidya. And this year with Dark Souls 3, we've gotten a new undead to arise. Jake, the Ashen Hollow. What's going on, man?
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for having me out.
What got you into doing the lore crafting? We'll talk about the game. We'll talk a little bit more about you, but what got you into lore crafting on YouTube, man?
So I got into the game Dark Souls when the Prepare to Die edition came out on PC, and I think that was like 3 years ago, maybe 4. I'm not exactly sure.
That sounds
but
right.
Yeah, I just got so enwrapped in this, and like you said, E&B being, I think, the biggest name. I think Vati does have more subscribers, but it's like Epic Name Bro is kind of the foundation of Dark Souls lore on YouTube,
Right.
I think. And
as far as I'm concerned, you don't get to Vati before going through Epic Name Bro.
Absolutely.
The way he brings you into the story and it breaks it down at such a base level.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. But yeah, so I had like my close group of friends, and I was getting them into Dark Souls one by one, and they were all like hesitant. They're like, "Oh, dude, I heard that game's really fucking hard. I don't want to do that." And I was like, "Oh, but you have to. The story, like, I can't just explain it to you if you've never played it. You have to live it and like experience it yourself." And I was in kind of like a normal Dark Souls debate, I like to call them, because there's so many ways to interpret the story, and everyone's bound to disagree. But we have our friendly debates, yeah. And finally, I was talking to my friend about Rosaria, and I was like, I think she's Gertrude, and he was, I think he was on the side of she's Guinevere. I was like, no, I'm not. I'm going to prove this to you visually. I'm going to make you a video. And I went through, and it was the first time I wrote like a cohesive piece of like writing about Dark Souls that I put all these thoughts collected in like this. I don't remember how many pages it was. It was a fairly long script for the first one. It was the first time I ever did that, and it was a shit ton of fun. And then I got to the point where I had to go get footage for it. I was like, oh man, this is equally as fun. And then even editing, which a lot of people don't like, I was like, man, even editing this is fun because I get to put cool music to it and all this stuff. And I really enjoyed it. I was like, I'm gonna keep fucking doing this because this is awesome. And I already had like 3 or 4 videos lined up, and then it just kind of exploded in the way it did, which I'm still kind of in shock myself. Still hasn't really hit home, but yeah, that's kind of the start of things.
And isn't that the way it goes? You find a passion project, you fall into it basically to piss off your friends, and then from
Yep.
those ashes, a phoenix arises.
Absolutely.
A little behind the scenes knowledge about me. When I first decided that I wanted to make my very first podcast, I actually decided that I wanted to start out with an episode 0 and just talk about nerdy shit and then eventually get onto Star Wars. And then my very first, or, my second episode, I was going to call it episode 1, fuck episode 1. And
Nice.
basically just to piss off a couple of my friends who were trying to pose that episode 1 was better than most people give it credit for. And that basically drove me into a nerd rage fueled frenzy.
Yeah.
I just lost my shit on them. But that's neither here nor there. But that's really where it seems to come from. Is lots of times you just fall into something, whether it
Yeah,
be talking to
absolutely.
your friends or, just experimenting. I think that's absolutely awesome.
Yeah.
So when you're not crafting the lore and becoming, in my opinion, probably the most controversial of the lore crafters on YouTube, just because of the way that you
Yeah.
look at things. I mean, I'm sorry, man, but I view you as rather controversial, and I absolutely love what you're doing. When you're not doing that, tell us about the man behind the microphone.
So I mean, I'm a pretty average guy, I guess. Got 2 kids, wife, home, 2 dogs. And when I'm not doing that, it's just playing video games, mowing the lawn. Yeah, just kind of like your suburban video game playing dad, I guess. I try to exercise once a year at least. Doesn't usually happen, but
Good for you. Good for you. I'm coming up on my bicentennial for exercise, so I mean, you're a lot more regular than I am.
awesome.
Movies. What are you into?
Oh, I enjoy. I don't think I've been asked that question in like 15 years. It's
Dude,
just
you're on
kind
a
of hitting
nerdy
me.
podcast, man. We got to talk about IP.
Yeah, I think I'm looking over my movie shelf and it's mostly Marvel movies and supernatural seasons.
Oh, dude. All right, you're my type of guy right now, man. You are my type
Oh
of guy.
yeah,
Did you see Doctor Strange yet?
not yet, unfortunately.
Well, hopefully you didn't listen to our last episode because it was spoilerific. We spoiled the shit out of that movie, but
Oh shit.
oh my god, I absolutely loved it. It was the most perfect movie I have seen since probably Guardians, which to me was almost a perfect movie.
That's awesome. That's
I
awesome. I was really looking forward to that for sure.
absolutely love it. Star Wars Rogue One, excited or meh?
Oh, that's a tough one. I usually like to give things the benefit of the doubt.
Right.
I'm kind of like a glass half full guy. Kind of like to be optimistic about things. Like, I believe in them. They'll do it. So for right now, excited, we'll call it.
I like it. I was pretty much that way with the first 2 trailers, but then I don't know, man, something about that third trailer that came out, it got to me. The way they cut it, I'm going to be so disappointed if it's not more than what that trailer is, man, because I started to roll a tear when that line came out. They're asking for a call sign. Rogue One. Dude, I rolled a fucking tear. A man tear, damn it. But a tear nonetheless.
Man, to you.
Oh my god! The way that trailer made it look, it looks like Band of Brothers set in a Star Wars universe, and that's what I love about it. Because we know the story of Rogue One, we know about the people that sacrificed their lives to get the plans for the Death Star, or at least you do if you paid attention to the first 5 minutes of dialogue of A New Hope.
Yeah.
But now we get to see it. Now we get to see these people standing up to the evil empire, and I just could not be more excited. But they did a very poor job with the first couple of trailers, in my opinion. I was excited because it's Star Wars, but that's pretty much where it ended.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah.
now they've got me. Now I'm counting the days. I've got a calendar that I'm checking days off right now.
Awesome.
TV series. You already said you're into Supernatural.
Oh yeah, that's if you were in my room, you would possibly think that a teenage girl could live here as well because I have 3 Supernatural posters, and I'm a huge Sam Dean and Castiel fanboy.
My wife loves to piss me off by trying to ship Dean and Castiel all the time. And yes, I get it. I've read the fan forums and everything like that. But I'm sorry, I identify as Dean. I mean, granted, if I was playing for the other team, I would totally be attracted to Sam, but I identify with Dean. That's how I see myself.
Yeah.
Probably poorly. I need new context, but that's how I see myself. So my wife keeps on trying to ship that to me, and she just looks at me. You see the homoerotic nature of this. No, God damn it, I don't. He's an angel of the Lord.
Yeah.
He's asexual, damn it. He has no parts. I've seen Dogma.
Yeah.
But you and I were talking earlier before we recorded today about The Walking Dead. You said you're a huge fan of that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Comic and show.
So I put down The Walking Dead a couple of years ago, right after the assault on the prison, after they, spoiler alert, after they killed the governor. I put it down just because the story just seemed to drag, how it hit up on several different characters and incidentally characters that were really pissing me off story-wise at that point. So I just stepped away from it. It was getting boring. I couldn't do it. Mm-hmm. Then a couple of weeks ago, Twitter exploded.
Yeah.
And I know the comics very, very well. I love the comics very, very much. So I had an inkling as to what was going to happen, but they've changed so much in the story that I wasn't positive. So I dodged spoilers and I caught up as quick as I could. And just like with anything else, as soon as I stop watching, just like everything that Ryan Murphy does, as soon as I stop watching, then it gets good again. And I was so pissed off to find that the very next episode after I stopped watching The Walking Dead, it hit the ground running and it didn't stop. Everything from Terminus to Finding Alexandria. Oh my God, this show is great. So what I'm tap dancing around is, what did you think of the premiere, man? What do you think of Negan, a.k.a. John Winchester?
Yeah. Obviously, I love Jeffrey Dean Morgan. He is a fantastic actor.
He is.
And I think he does a really good job at making Negan like one of those guys you hate to love.
I completely agree. Because I detest him. I definitely feel that desire to annihilate, yet he's such a compelling villain. He is so interesting to me. To bring it back to Dark Souls a little bit, he is Ornstein and Smough combined. He's so interesting. And I'm so fixated, but I have that desire to annihilate him, but I don't want to because I want him to stay on the screen.
Exactly. It's like it's a lose-lose situation.
It really is. Or, you know what? A win-win situation, because you win that he's on the screen, you win for more story. Oh, man, they can do so much with that. And one thing I've always loved about Negan is his code. He is an awful, atrocious, abominable man, but he draws the line at rape. He will not rape, and he will not allow his followers to rape. And I love that. I love that, it still shows that even in a post-apocalyptic world, not all men turn into rapists like lots of these other post-apocalyptic movies will have you believe.
Yeah. He's definitely an asshole, but he's not without respecting his own,
right?
Like you said, code with things. He's not senselessly going out and just being an asshole. Even with Rick and Alexandria, they got a hell of a deal. They killed 40, 50 of his guys in a compound, and he was they were going to get away with only losing one guy, and that's a hell of a deal. So
yes, it is. Yes, it is. When you really look at it that way, yeah, it is.
Yeah, a lot of things are about perspective as well. We're kind of viewing The Walking Dead through Rick's group's perspective. So he seems like he's a really bad guy, but from the other perspective, they got let off hella easy.
Very true. And one person that nobody's talking about, it seems right now, hashtag no love for Ezekiel. Come on, man. I thought he was perfectly casted.
Yeah, I like that. And I like how they, near the end of the episode when he's talking to Carol, they kind of they pulled him out of that King Ezekiel character and like leveled him on a field of being a real person with
Right.
Carol. And
Yes.
I thought that was really well done there.
I thought it was brilliant script writing. I thought that the actor delivered it beautifully. Just how you see his shoulders slump and you just see almost the hint of a smirk on his face, and then
Hmm.
he just brings it real. I
Yeah,
loved it. I loved it. That was the best part, in my opinion, of the entire episode. Up to and
absolutely.
including seeing Shiva the tiger.
Oh yeah, I can't wait to see her in action.
Oh my god, me neither. Me neither. But all right, so we know a little bit more about you now. We know some of the stuff that you enjoy outside of Dark Souls. So, for our listeners that are not familiar with this game, they're sitting there, come on, you piece of shit. We're not gamers. We don't understand this. Do you want to take our listeners by the hand and kind of give them a brief introduction to the Curse of the Undead?
Yeah. So that's okay. So the way that the lore works, I feel like I need to explain this first to add context. Um, it's this incredibly vague but even very descriptive thing. Uh, Miyazaki, the guy, the master behind the whole Dark Souls franchise, talked about his influence for the story was when he was a child. His family was very poor, and he couldn't afford like reading books at his level. So he had like a very minimal knowledge at reading, and he wasn't very good at it. So he was forced to go get books from the library and borrow them. And a lot of times he could only read, like 15% of a page before going to the next one. So he was forced to fill in like all these spots in the story himself. And that's kind of what we're doing in Dark Souls. We're given like very few and far between factual pieces of information, and then we're kind of led with these things that are kind of insinuating more than one thing, and then it's up to us to create that story. So the undead curse specifically is one of those things. Some people say, when Gwyn linked the first flame, the undead curse appeared. One of the theories I put out there is that Velka, when she became the goddess of sin, detested the linking of the flame because it wasn't the natural order of how the world is supposed to be. So she spread the dark soul to humanity and used the undead curse as a constant army, always barraging Gwyn and trying to snuff out the flame.
Gwyn being the king of the gods.
Yes, Lord of Sunlight.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that that's a pretty good summary of what the undead curse is. And here's one of the things that I actually love about your videos: the fact that you're a Velka truther.
Oh yeah.
The fact that Velka, who you hear about, you've never seen her in any of the games, to your knowledge, but you hear about her and you read a little bit about what she's about. All right, Velka being the goddess of sin.
Hmm.
Gwyn arguably committing the first sin. Arguably, because some people, the Witch of Izalith might be that
Yeah.
other person that could have committed the first sin as well. Velka being the goddess of sin is always lurking in the background. So no matter what truth you decide to follow throughout these games, whatever descriptions you kind of latch yourself onto, Velka's always behind the scenes. Don't kid yourself. Don't think that she's not. She's
Yeah.
always there. Once you stumble across her name for the first time, never forget it, because there's always something to do with her.
Oh yeah. She's kind of like Santa Claus. She sees you while you're sleeping and while you're awake.
She knows when you're dead or undead.
Yeah.
I actually have a theory. One of the very first bosses in Dark Souls number 2, the Penetrator. I have a theory that he is actually an agent of Velka, possibly even one of the chosen undead who decided not to link the fire in the first place. I've always had that feeling for multiple reasons. One, he flies in on a raven. Two, he has a barrage of different weapons surrounding him, the same way that the player character would as well. When you see most of these other characters, the NPCs and the bosses, they have one, maybe two weapons, and a third if you count a shield. But the Penetrator, he has several of them surrounding him. He may only use one, but he's got a lot on him. I've always felt that he was an agent of Velka. What do you think of that?
Um, Truth be told, I never made it all the way through Dark Souls 2. I'm kind of on that side of things where I kind of despise the game.
Really?
Yeah, yeah,
Oh, I get that when a lot of people are like that. A lot of people just don't like that game. I'm not one of them. I actually love Dark Souls 2, not as much
yeah,
as, 1 or 3, but I I don't love the layout of the games, the way the world always seems to fold in on itself with the other ones. It almost seems like they're
yeah.
tree branches in Dark Souls 2, which isn't as engaging, but
hmm
I don't
Like,
know. There's something about Dark Souls 2 I've always liked. It always felt a
yeah,
little bit like a warm blanket. Maybe a nice cheap warm blanket that you would get at BJ's or something like that. Whereas Dark Souls 1 is like an Afghan.
yeah,
The most calming of all blankets. It's that
yeah.
Afghan that you just wrap yourself around, wrap around yourself on Christmas morning. That's what Dark Souls 1 feels like to me.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right. I just described Dark Souls 1 like an Afghan.
Nice. I
That
The way
happened.
I've always put it with Dark Souls 2, because it was so different. It was so different graphically. It felt
Yes.
different on the controls. And I've never see, I don't think it's a bad game, but I think it's a bad sequel. Had it have been something like Dark Souls, the Drangleic Chronicles or something, but giving it that two, giving it, this is a sequel to one, but then, having almost absolutely nothing to do with one or three
Right.
was kind of disappointing. And then, especially, my biggest problem always was so we played Dark Souls 1, and then just the environment and the art style in that game is just you look anywhere, you're like, this is Dark Souls. You can
It's
just tell
breathtaking.
by the feel. But when you get into Dark Souls 2, it's not the same. It's a good looking game, but it's not. It doesn't have that captivating, oh man, I am in Dark Souls right now vibe to it.
Right.
And all those things combined, I couldn't I couldn't bring myself to finish the game.
You know what? I can stand behind that. I get what you're saying. I think a good analogy might even be that final season of Scrubs. If
hmm
they had just not called it Scrubs season 9 and just had it be something different like Scrubs Medical School right from the word get go, I think it would have stood a chance. I think more
Yeah,
people would have embraced it. But because it had the season 9 on it, it was a continuation of the base story. Lots of
yeah,
people, myself included, detested it when it came out.
because it
I think
raises
that
expectations.
Right, right. I think that might be a good point about
Yeah,
Dark Souls 2. If they would have just called it maybe, considering the DLC, the crowns of the different kings,
hmm
if they would have called it like Dark Souls Generations, even, or something like that, I think
yeah,
or like you said, Dark Souls Chronicles or something, I think it would have translated a lot more. Because there were
hmm
echoes of Dark Souls 1 throughout Dark Souls 2. You could always find the parallels and the echoes.
yeah,
But damn it, you can't find them in 1 or 3 referencing Dark Souls 2.
yeah, yeah. And I mean, and even at the time, that was when Miyazaki decided to just go work on Bloodborne anyway. So
Right.
I mean, I don't know. If I was in charge, I'd be like, we're just gonna wait for him to finish up, what he's doing, because this is kind of his brainchild. But they had the go anyway. So
Very true.
I mean, it is what it is. It's out, and there's nothing that can be done. So
All right, so let's talk a little bit of lore. Let's talk a little bit of theory here. You have had a series of videos, probably within the last few months, basically posturing that something that all of us Souls fans have held very dear to our hearts. And I think I'm still in that camp, honestly, but you have made me step back and really think about it. We're all convinced that the Feared of Pygmy is actually the progenitor of humankind, that he was the one who took the dark soul, that is who you're rising to be. And most of us even believe that the Feared of Pygmy is in fact Manus. But you've
mhm.
posed something else in your videos.
Yeah,
What
that
is
would
that?
be Velka. Surprise.
All roads lead to Velka.
Yes. Manus to me never really made sense as the furtive pygmy. I mean, he definitely has a lot to do with that, that side of the story arc with the Dark Soul and the furtive pygmy.
Hmm.
But I never thought he was himself. For starters, his soul says that that his soul is just a lump of gentle humanity. And when we're thinking, when you think Lord Soul, you're thinking like a majestic, Like, you pull back the curtains and angels start singing
Right.
like soul, and it's labeling this as just a lump.
Yeah,
And then,
you're picturing something ineffable.
yeah, yeah. And so it's, you read Gwen's soul and it's like this magnificent soul, this and that, yada, yada, yada. And then you're like, this lump of shit right here is Manus's soul. And then what really got me, I'll try not to go on too much of a tangent. I do that a lot.
Oh, dude, you can go on as many tangents as you want here.
Oh, okay, perfect. So when I got even further into it and I started getting even crazier to people, and I was like, you know what? I think Velka is actually the Witch of Izalith. And that all kind of stemmed from. So in the opening cinematic of Dark Souls 1, it says, who found the souls. It's like Nito, Witch of Izalith, Gwyn, and the Furtive Pygmy. And they're all kind of momentarily brandishing their souls for the camera or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed that the Witch of Izalith's hands were burned as she held hers. And I was like, well, she deals with like flame, pyromancies, and sorceries and all that. It would be no wonder that her hands are burned. But then the Furtive Pygmy, I noticed two things. The burns on the hands are identical to the Witch of Izalith's in the cinematic. And two, the Furtive Pygmy is not holding the Dark Soul in the cinematic. It's just a tiny sliver of what looked like could have been one of the Lord Souls that we previously saw. When we look at Manus' soul, it looks like what the humanity sprites look like, but in a much, larger degree. But the Furtive Pygmy in the cinematic wasn't holding the Dark Soul. So that's when I kind of started breaking into things, and I was like, Manus can't be the Pygmy to me.
And this is the minutia that people look at when crafting these lore videos, and this is what I'm astounded with, because I never would have noticed that ever. And see, this type of stuff right here is exactly why I called you probably the most controversial lore crafter on YouTube for the Souls series.
Mm-hmm.
Because most people, ABC. Manus is the Pygmy. Pygmy is the holder of the Dark Soul. But you dig a little deeper into the earth, and you find that nugget that no. Why don't you look over here? And I just find that so fascinating. Furthermore, the fact that you think that Velka is the Witch of Izalith. I'm still not sold on Velka being the holder of the Dark Soul, but you have officially sold me that the Witch of Izalith is Velka. That is something you completely sold me on, and I just thought that idea was too brilliant and too perfectly crafted not to be true. I mean, and it's right there in front of us the entire time. I just thought it was brilliant.
Okay, yeah, that's fair enough. And like one of the big things that kind of is like my one and only pet peeve, and like having conversations like this is awesome, like people who understand that not everything's going to be agreed upon. But one of the things that's always my pet peeve is like people that I don't know, I'm trying to think of the term for it, that take their interpretations as fact.
Right.
And I hate the term when you're talking Dark Souls, I hate the term "you're wrong," because there's never going to be one canonical story to Dark Souls. There never will be. It's not crafted to do that. It's crafted for the individual. At the end of the day, we're making our own individual stories, and that's what it's about. It's about our journey, our headcanon. So I hate the term people are like, you're wrong, you're this, that. I'm like, I'd love to listen to your theories. I love to talk theories all day long. But as soon as people are like, no, you're wrong, this is what happened, and this is what is that's what I'm like, no, move along.
Yeah, exactly. And furthermore, how can you be one of those people when you're literally coming up with theories in this video game? First off, it's a damn video game. I mean, lots of us, we hold this video game and its lore to be, close to us, as close as any Marvel or DC fan. Some people have Batman and that's their religion. Some people hold Dark Souls to be as close to their heart as this. Mm-hmm. But you're literally coming up with theories that can stem from the location of the occult club in Dark Souls 1. And there are theories in lore that have sprung from there about how there was an assassination plot to kill the gods. And that took place even before Gwyn went to link the fire in Dark Souls 1. which, by the way, I love that story. And I think that I personally feel that a lot of that even ties into Havel the Rock, another
Yeah.
very, very minor, very missable character in all three Dark Souls games. But lots of people don't even know who that is or don't even know about the Occult Club just because it's incidental where you can find it. But it's both the curse, the curse, and the beauty of Dark Souls is you can create your narrative and it can be as rich and as, woven as you want it to be, or it could be very streamlined.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
as far as the original game, I'm of the mindset that neither ending is the good ending because you're being manipulated no matter what you do.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I also think it would be quite interesting if at some point you find out that Koth and Frampt, the two primordial serpents, are actually just two heads of a hydra and it's all one being. I don't think that's true, but I think that would be a cool little twist.
Yeah, I could see something like that. I'm actually
I'm not posing that, by the way. I'm just throwing that out there.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm actually, like, the past month, has it been a month since the DLC's been out? Around the time since the DLC came out.
It's been about a month because I contacted you a while back, but I specifically wanted to wait a little while for the DLC to kind of marinate with our listeners before we talked about it. Because I have a feeling we're going to dive into this a little bit too.
Yeah, because because when I get kind of the crazier theories, I spend a lot of time on them because it's easy to just go out on the internet and just shout, this is what I think. But, obviously when it comes to Dark Souls, and obviously since I'm, putting videos out there and like my reputation on the line, I like to bring enough evidence to the table to where people can say, I don't necessarily agree with this theory. I don't like this theory, but I see where you're coming from. Mm-hmm. And so it's interesting. I'm actually working on like a pretty long theory right now about the primordial serpents.
Ooh.
So
can you give us any teasers as to what's coming up?
Yeah, so it started when I was looking at the Morian blade, which is the blade you get from Uria, and it says that the blade is something about it's like a ceremonial blade, and so I'm assuming it's more so for show rather than an actual weapon because it's not that good as a weapon anyway. But it says that the blade represents the Tower of Londor, and so I took the picture and I kind of turned it like right side up, and I was like picturing this as a tower. I was like, okay, it's got the spikes coming out like those are wings, and then it's got the hilt, and then it's got the actual handle. I was like, that's 11 total. And I was thinking, because we know Koth is involved in the Sable Church, because we hear Uria speak of it, and there's a couple item descriptions that talk about it. And so I went back through Dark Souls 1 and I did the dark ending to kind of get a look again at Koth and his kind of initiative. And when you beat it, there are actually 10 primordial serpents that like bow to you when you walk out.
Yes.
And then the voice starts speaking about Koth and Frampt, and it's speaking as if Koth isn't even there. So we see 10 primordial serpents minus Koth, which would make 11, which is exactly how many prongs there are on this sword. So I think that this church structure has something to do with the remaining primordial serpents other than Frampt.
Fuck out of here. You're breaking my brain with these thoughts, man. And I thought that one of my theories was completely out there, and I was trying to come up with an idea of how to convey this, because this is really what I think on a theory. You broke my brain with that. That is so brilliantly crafted. And the way Miyazaki's brain works too, considering where he draws so much of this inspiration, it's entirely possible. It really is. I think that's a really good theory. That's one that I'm going to have to sit there and, let marinate a little.
Yeah, no, it's still got quite a bit of work to do. It's going to get weirder when I tell you I think the painter might be a primordial serpent as well.
The painter in the Painted World?
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
And possibly the Sisters of the Sable Church. But I'm still working out a bunch of kinks, but those are some of the kind of hints that I'm working with at the moment.
Oh my God. I cannot wait to watch this video then.
Oh, and Xanthus King Jeremiah also from the Painted World is actually, because the statues in Lothric we see of like the humanoid bodies with the primordial serpent head.
Naturally.
Yeah, so imagine Xanthus King Jeremiah. He's got this human body and he's got this big wrapped up,
The
bulging
little
head
wrapped up
thing.
turban thing, very reminiscent of the Yellow King in Demon Souls,
Yeah, yeah.
which you have not played, I realize.
Yeah. So imagine one of those statues with a primordial serpent head with like a turban around it, just like Xanthus King Jeremiah. And then
That
you
would make
kind of start
sense.
noticing that they kind of look similar. So as I'm thinking about Painted World and the Dark, the Abyss, Koth, and Primordial Serpents, I'm finding all these little connections. So
That's absolutely
Xanthus
brilliant.
King could have been a primordial serpent.
One of the most out there theories that I've posed to a lot of my friends, and I have seen this online, so I know I'm not the only one that thinks this, is again with Dark Souls 2. I realize you haven't finished it yet, but I'm pretty sure you know a lot of the story that has to do with it, right?
A fair bit, I believe.
All right. Well, I know that you've at least met the Emerald Herald, Shanalot.
Yeah. Hmm.
My theory is that Shanalot is actually a fragment of Manus' soul as well. The exact same way that Nishandra and all of the other sisters that you meet in the DLC is.
Okay. Yeah, I think I've heard that before as
Yep.
well.
And it all comes down to the name for me. Not only that, but the way she edges you on, the way that you can assume that so many of these sisters talk, and then it was solidified with the final queen in Aleum Lois, the way that she didn't seem to be menacing or evil whatsoever, but that she was truly penitent about who she was at her core, what her destiny was, and she just tried to keep watch and keep vigil over the flames of Aleum Lois. So, based on all of that, and I'm not necessarily saying that this makes Shen a lot evil, but the fact that, to me, it all boiled down to the fact that she was manipulating you as well, and she's actually a soul of Manus. And that she is going to be the queen to the next monarch. So,
Okay. Yeah.
that
Yeah, I
was
can
my
see
out
that.
there theory.
Yeah. No, I think that could make sense for sure.
That, and I'm definitely in the camp that says that crossbreed Priscilla is actually Yorshka.
Nice.
I think that those two are the same person. I think that she was given a different name by Gwendolyn,
Yeah. Kind of.
basically to hide her identity.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure you even said that at one point, didn't you?
Yeah. Yeah. That was I think that was like the third video I ever did. So it was kind of a while ago, but yeah. Which I think is interesting now, though. Now that we learned that Pontiff Sullivan was actually born and raised in the Painted World,
Yes.
kind of got me wondering why the need for her name to be changed. Because, like, if he's from the Painted World, he likely knows her, right?
One would assume, especially seeing as though
Yeah.
she seemed to stand vigil and act as almost a guardian to the denizens of the Painted World.
Yeah, yeah. So I don't know. I feel like more of that side of the Painted World questions, I think and hope will be answered in the next DLC because they kind of left us with minimal information there.
They left us with minimal information in regards to Dark Souls 3, but they answered a lot of questions that we may have had from Dark Souls 1, i.e. the nature of the Painted World.
Yeah, yeah,
And it's still up for interpretation one way or the other, whether you view the Painted World as a prison or as a refuge. And
Yeah.
ultimately, I don't even think that that's something that we as a player can truly see. I think that that is a perspective that is given to every single member of the population of the Painted World. Some may see it as a prison, others may see it as, their safe haven. Much
Yeah.
like any monarchy or any country, even in modern days. Some people see America as a place that beats them down, and other people see it as a safe haven and a place to, the land of the free and the home of the brave. And I think it all is a matter of perspective. But
Oh
it
yeah,
gave,
yeah.
but it gave us a lot more information as to the nature of it and the creation of it, which I thought was absolutely amazing. It was something I didn't know I wanted until I had it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we're coming up a little bit against the clock here. So, and I have a feeling that this is going to take us right up until pretty much the end. I want to talk a little bit about the abyss and the deep. What are your feelings on the deep? Do you think that the abyss and the deep are the same thing? I guess is what I'm trying to ask.
Yes and no. It's really complicated. Like, how did I explain it? So, have you seen Stranger Things?
Oh, of course I've seen Stranger Things.
So you know how the what do they call it? The underneath or the upside
The
down?
upside down.
The upside down. So you know how that works. So it's like on our plane of existence, but it's not at the same time.
Right.
I think the deep is that to the abyss. Like it is the abyss, but it's still like the upside down of the abyss.
Okay. All right. So
Yeah, it's such like a complicated area because I mean it definitely has its ties to the abyss. We know it's made up of the human dregs,
yes.
and the human souls are just the dark soul, which is darkness, the abyss, etc. And so like we have to know that that connection's there. But is it the abyss? Still, I think my answer would be yes and no because that's as best as I can come up with at the moment.
That makes sense. I don't know. There's been a lot of theories that I've heard and read, and there's been a lot of speculation as to the nature of it.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, the only real hints that we have are the human dregs. I mean, there's a lot of people talking about the deep, but there's not a lot of concrete information about the deep. And we're at the third Souls game, 5 if you include Demon Souls and Bloodborne into this. You would assume that we'd be used to something like this by now, but we're not.
Yeah.
We're not at all. It's this non-linear storytelling. We're still not used to it. We're still sitting there screaming at our controllers going, come on, Miyazaki, tell us a little bit more.
Yeah.
Lead us by the hand a little bit more. At least give us a flashlight or something.
Right. Yeah.
But I don't know. I've been in the camp of thinking that the deep is the next stage in the cyclical nature of the world. But at the same time, it just doesn't feel right saying that.
Yeah.
Maybe an alternate version of the cyclical nature of the world. An abomination itself to the natural progression, which would be the age of dark, the age of light, the age of the curse, and then it just kind of goes cyclical. But what if the deep was a skew away from there? In terms of Back to the Future, an alternate 1985 type deal. I guess maybe that kind of plays into what you were saying, like the upside down version of the abyss.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's also it could be something like because we know I forget which archdeacon. I don't know if it was McDonald or the other fucking one, but they liked the way that the human souls would stagnate. So it could be where a bunch of humanity has gone stagnant and kind of created like an alternate version of the abyss. But yeah, it's really hard to say at the moment. I don't know. I feel like they need like 4 or 5 more DLCs if this is going to be the last game.
Oh, I completely agree. And just for the record, the way you describe that, I'm like, where all of the human goes and it just stagnates, I'm like, why do I keep thinking about the Golgothan from Dogma? Maybe I just need to go watch Dogma, get it out of my system here. I don't know why I'm thinking about the shit demon, but there it is. It's on the table.
Yeah.
But no, I think that's definitely as valid as any of the theories that are out there currently. And I think that I don't think any of us are going to be satisfied until we get some sort of at least a nudge in the right direction as to what the deep is. Whether it is another name for the abyss, which is still completely possible, or if it's, more like what you said, an alternate version of it, or a abomination to nature itself that could have been the whole goal of the Church of Londor, if you want to look at it that way, seeing as though they seem to be taking quite the initiative to steer things in one direction or the other instead of letting things play their course.
Yeah,
so, I mean, at this point especially, all theories are valid.
Yeah.
I mean, hell, people are still coming up with theories from the original Dark Souls. Dark Souls 3 is, 6 months old? 7, 8?
Right.
Maybe?
Yeah.
I mean, we got a lot of speculation left to do on this. I can guarantee there's still Easter eggs that we haven't even found yet, which is surprising, but I can almost guarantee it.
Yeah.
And we still have 1 DLC left to go.
Yeah, hopefully the next one will be a lot longer than this one, though. I think they kind of cut down on like the PvE content because they added the arena.
I think they did too, but I also think it might have been to balance out the difficulty of that final battle.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because, fair warning, if you're also playing the Old Hunters DLC when you're playing Bloodborne, she's very reminiscent of Lady Maria. Very reminiscent.
Nice.
Although,
Nice.
frankly, Lady Maria's a little bit easier compared to what we just went through. That was difficult. That was like Lady Maria mixed with crossbreed Priscilla, as far as difficulty there.
Oh, nice. Nice. That'll be fun.
That was so much fun. But here's my theory to you. And I'm gonna craft this one to you and just set it out there and have my listeners chastise me and crucify me for my thoughts on the video games, and just let you sit there and just let it marinate on you as you're going through and playing these games.
Sounds good.
Miyazaki has been very open and vocal about how he says that Demon Souls, Bloodborne, and the Souls series are not related. They're spiritually related, but the stories themselves are not.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that to be bullshit. I think that he's saying that specifically because they are a couple of these games are specifically owned by Sony, so to have ties and correlation would technically be a little bit of a breach of contract and possibly illegal, and money would have to be sifted around. The reason that I say that that's bullshit is because of one character, Patches.
Yeah.
I think that Patches is the key. Now, lots of people point to the fact that he's just an homage. He's something to make the players smile. Yes, I agree with that, but I think that it runs a little bit deeper than that if you look at his nature. Patches the hyena in Demon Souls. Trusty Patches called throughout the Dark Souls. And then you get to Bloodborne, and he has a completely different look. He's always been just straight human in the Souls series and in Demon Souls. Mm-hmm. But in Bloodborne, he's almost like part arachnid-esque. Almost like Quelaag or Quelana in the original Dark Souls. Which makes sense as far as the nightmarish realm that you're playing through in Bloodborne. Here's what I propose. Given his nature, given his jokes, his constant laughter, the way that he's always trying to trick you, I pose a similar idea as to what they did in Supernatural. They're all connected through Patches, and Patches is a god. I believe Patches to be a trickster god, kind of like Loki, or Gabriel, or the Trickster. Just pulling the comparison through Supernatural. I think that he is the key that's holding all of these, not only times, but possibly even dimensions together. I think that he exists in all of these areas and travels between all of these areas. I don't think that he's spiteful. I don't think that he's necessarily evil. Despite the fact that he seems to have a true disdain for clerics, I think that that might even be because his religion and his deific status is so old, and the age of his deific status dwarfs that of Gwyn and his gods. Mm-hmm. I think that it's almost out of jealousy. These clerics worship him, but they don't even remember me, and then he just gets pissed off. Kind of like the Assyrian gods or the Sumerian or Babylonian gods that we have here on our version of Earth.
Yeah.
Most people don't remember their names unless, they read the Lesser Key of Solomon or into demonology and stuff like that. Most people don't remember those names, but those names did exist, and they were worshipped for centuries to millennia, depending on the city, state, and province. What if Patches was one of those types of gods and actually survived through the eons? He, maybe some others, maybe Velka's as old as that as well, possibly. And Velka is one of the gods of yore, and she just happened to be there watching over Gwyn and his children, being like, you're kind of a bitch, but, maybe that road leads to Velka as well. I don't know. But that's what I pose. I pose that Patches is a god. And another reason that I say that is even throughout the Souls series, he's always there, he's always Patches, and you can kill him if you want, but he's always in the sequel.
Yeah.
I don't think it's just a nod for fan service. I think that there's much more there for Patches, and I think that he's the key that links them all.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I definitely can't discredit it. So, I mean, that's always good, I guess.
I realize it sounds like it's out there. I realize it sounds like I'm grasping at straws, but I mean, I'm also trying to bring in, real world religion and other types of pop culture stories that have used a similar idea.
I mean, you're talking to the guy who said the Witch of Izalith is Velka and the Fur of Pygmy, so I know how that goes. I mean, I'll probably have more on that once I actually run into him in Bloodborne, and I'm hoping that they actually do that Demon Souls remake for PS4 that they were talking about.
Oh my god, me too.
I would like to play that, and once I did both of those, I could definitely, have a better perspective about that thought. But yeah, I mean, that would definitely be cool. That would, that's definitely something that can happen in the Dark Souls universe for sure.
Oh god, yeah. I mean, you can say whatever you want, especially for legal reasons. And I mean, there's a lot of people. I mean, Miyazaki is also a known troll. He trolled us to death with the amulet in the original Dark Souls, and turns out that amulet actually did serve a function. It really eventually did.
Yeah. There was actually, which I thought was funny, and I didn't include it in the video when I was kind of disproving Manus as the furtive pygmy, because I didn't want to be too much of like an asshole troll. But so like the way that the Miyazaki had trolled the entire community over this pendant, we were all like, what does it do? We need to find the answers. And then the Soul of Manus mentions how he went crazy searching for his lost pendant.
Right.
And I was like, all Manus is like a manifestation of the community who went and drove themselves fucking mad.
Holy shit. I never put that together. Oh my god. I never put that together. Wow, Miyazaki was insulting us. He insulted us in game.
I mean, it's not like official, but that's why I didn't want to put it in the video, because it's not like actual evidence in the game. But I just thought that's kind of curious.
Miyazaki-san, you ass. I hope you're listening to this. You insulted us in game. First off, props. Secondly, you ass.
Yeah.
Oh my god, that is absolutely brilliant. I love that. And see, this is why I call you the most controversial lore crafter on YouTube. People can watch Vadi, they can watch Dave Klein, they can watch Silvermont, and all of these guys are worth a check out. They're all fantastic.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely.
But I'm telling you, man, and I'm not just saying this because you're a guest on this show. There's a reason why I tapped you specifically and wanted to have you on here, is because the way you see these stories is a way that I've never... most of my friends who are diehard into this game, they don't even see it through this same lens. And then I turn them on to your videos and they're like, you know what? He's got a point. Oh my god, I'm a Velka truther. Holy shit.
Nice.
So seriously, man, it's no wonder that you're growing your community as fast as you are, because you're just seeing it through this different lens, and it's absolutely awesome. And again, it's ways that I've never seen it before, and I've been playing these games for years and years. Man,
Yeah. There was actually a Reddit post that was made in the Dark Souls 3 subreddit when I suggested the Witch of Izalith and Velka and all that, and it was kind of trending. And one of the comments in there that I really liked was they're like, so in terms of Dark Souls lore, Vadi's like that guy. He gets up in the morning, he gets like this nice $3,000 suit on, and he goes to New York in his like Lexus, and he like ascends into the tower on his 53rd floor office, and there's, it's all glass, everything's very prestigious, and he's writing lore. And he's like, then there's the Ashen Hollow, who's in a basement somewhere, and it's filled with smoke, and he's always got a lit cigarette hanging out of his mouth, and his hair's in a fritz, and he's got red string connecting pictures all over the fucking walls and shit. And I was like, he's like the conspiracy theorist.
Oh my god.
I was
so
like, that's
you're
perfect.
Carrie Matheson in Homeland.
Yeah.
And how accurate is that? Just tell the listeners.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. A lot of people were like, that's kind of insulting. I was like, no, this is like the perfect representation.
Oh my god, that's absolutely brilliant. I love it.
Yeah.
All right, man. Is there anything else that you want to say to our listeners before we take off?
Well, the thing I'm hoping to do, it's not really a secret, so you don't have to keep it a secret, but I'm hoping to get in touch after the last DLC comes out, because if it is the last game and it's the last DLC, that's going to be the last pieces we get. And I'm hoping to get permission from, I don't know if it'll be FromSoft or Sony, but I'm hoping to get permission from whoever I need to get permission from to actually write Dark Souls novels. And
that would be
kind
amazing.
of through my perspective of the theories.
That would be amazing. I actually sat down to write a kind of sort of quasi fan fiction when even before Dark Souls 2 even came out, but I got a little bit into it and then I just kind of abandoned it. Dude, I really think that that would work out beautifully. I mean, hell, they've got the comic book out now.
Yeah. So I would love to do that. If not, I think that I am going to try to write my own novels, kind of like from the inspiration of Dark Souls.
Right.
So, but we'll see how that goes.
Where can they find you? Where can they check out your videos?
That'd be youtube.com/the Ashen Hollow. And basically, since no one has ever used the moniker the Ashen Hollow before, you can find me at any website /the Ashen Hollow. So Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. I think that's all of them anyways. But yeah.
Awesome. Anything that you want to leave them with? Any bits of wisdom? Anything that you want them to check out?
I mean, you can check out my channel if you kind of want the controversial lore videos. And I don't know. I don't really know how to plug myself. But
the Carrie Matheson of Dark Souls really is probably pretty accurate and pretty fucking awesome visual too. And you can find us, me, Brooke, any of the guys from Couldn't Be Models. You can find us on Twitter and Instagram at artfulgremlins. You can email us, artfulgremlin, without the S, no S in that, at gmail.com. And if you like what you're hearing, if you like what we're doing, if you want to help us keep the lights on, you can always visit our Patreon page at patreon.com/artfulgremlins. You guys can get early access to all of our shows as soon as we, can. We'll give you guys early access to everything that we can, as well as plenty of other perks and benefits and everything like that there. Do you have a Patreon you want to plug?
Yeah, /the Ashen Hollow. Yeah, there's some cool patron rewards, I believe. I'm actually getting some custom art done of like a badass Velka drawing that's going to be for patron-only wallpapers for their phones and computers and such. And then I'm getting some pins made that say I am an ashhole, because that's what we refer to the people in my community as, ashholes.
I love it.
So there's going to be some cool stuff on there.
Can I get some of that Velka wallpaper stuff as like print and put it on my wall?
Yeah, for sure.
Because I totally want that. Some of these walls in the office, they're a little bit bare. I need some Velka action in here.
Yeah, I don't know if you know the artist Menace LG. He does a lot of stuff on DeviantArt for Dark Souls. Does a lot of Dark Souls
name
fan
sounds
art.
familiar.
And he's really good. But basically, it's going to look like the statue of Velka that's in the Undead Settlement in the sewer, but it's going to look less like a statue, more like a real person, and like out from behind her are going to be like these massive crow wings that are flying or like spread out, and she's going to be brandishing the Dark Soul in front of her. So it's going to look fucking badass.
Oh my god, that sounds so amazing. More of that. More of that, man. All right, guys. Well, I hope you enjoyed falling down the rabbit hole of nerddom that is Dark Souls. I hope you enjoyed our guest, the Ashen Hollow. Until next time, I've been Robbie.
I'm Jake, the Ashen Hollow.
And let's close the book on this week.
Alrighty.